Hi, Monica.
Hi, Dean.
Okay, Monica. Here's our hypothetical. Today's day one of a
Mhm.
1 year brand new engagement, right? New client, new set of projects, new everything. You're new to them, they're new to you, right? Today's day one, and we're going to talk about the first 90 days. So, um, tell me a little bit about you.
Okay.
Introduce yourself, and then tell me what the first 90 days, at a high level, what the first 90 days is normally like for you or for any fractional CMO.
Right. So, yeah, hi, I'm Monica. I'm a fractional CMO and helping businesses break through growth ceilings, bringing over 20 years of experience across the entire spectrum from brand to strategy and
Mhm.
across like geographies in this world. I'm living in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. And the first 90 days, I think those are some of the most crucial ones, and that we underestimate. It's really coming in and, first of all, making sure that you get a really deep understanding of that business because, I work across sectors as well, and I could be working every time in a different industry. Really making sure there's a really deep understanding of the business, starting with like the key numbers, what across the customer journey. So you have the highlight of the issues and opportunities. But then really making sure you understand your customer, which for me is non-negotiable, really understanding the customer, the people internally, externally, uh, processes, the product, what services, what are you working with? And then really coming up with a clear action plan that you're going to focus on and make sure that everybody's aligned with it and you have buy-in as well from senior management as well on this. Otherwise, you could be working on the wrong things. So once and you have that, and during that process, I also love identifying at least 1 to 3 areas that can be really quick wins that we can start implementing immediately. So you're not waiting just till over 90 days before you start doing anything in the business.
Fair enough. Makes sense. And Mike, hi. How are you?
Hey, Dean, what's up?
Okay, Mike. So same situation. Let folks know who you are, and then talk about from the fractional CMO point of view, like what do those first 3 months look like, or if you like, what problems do you normally expect to find, or you typically see when you start with a new client, even if the client doesn't like realize the problem was there.
Okay. Uh, Similar to Monica, I work as a fractional chief marketing officer now, but that's because I gave up the gig as being a full-time CMO
Mhm.
for the better part of 20 years for various companies, including a couple billion-dollar enterprises. So I take that experience and bring it to obviously large business, but not as large as where I worked in. What I do in the first 90 days, which really ties into what your second question is, if I say day one, I've probably day one officially is not day one. Day one probably happened a week or two prior to that. I've looked at a lot of data. I've looked at a lot of reports. I've looked at personnel records. I've looked at customers. I mean, I'm doing everything that Monica spoke, but I'm probably doing that before the fact so that on
Mhm.
day one, when I walk in, I have a basis upon which to ask questions, which is primarily what I'm going to do in the first 30 of those 90 days. I'm going to interview everybody internally. It's amazing to go to your point. It's amazing how the C suites view of the world is far different from the people say in the marketing department or in
Mhm.
sales. There's a definite disconnect, and you have to figure out, well, which one is true. Well, like anything else, truth is probably somewhere in the middle. But I'm going to do that. I'm going to talk to the people and actually tell them, be open and honest. I'm not going to repeat it to anybody else. If you think the CEO is giving you bad information or is not leading, you need to tell me that because I need to validate that in other ways. It's okay to do that. The following 60, maybe the middle 30 days, is working with all of those teams to determine things that are sustainable, things that really need to go away, and then everything in the middle, and develop a strategy and an action plan that can be executed. The final 30 days is a review and stopping at that 90-day point and looking backwards and honestly saying, what did we miss? I'm not perfect, nor is anybody else. We're going to go back and review what we did. That's typically what happens in the first 90 days, or the first 90 days plus the 2 weeks that weren't officially there.
What about, okay? So that's from the CMO's point of view, basically, right? Let's switch perspectives, right? If I'm the CEO I'm the client CEO, right? I probably had to convince somebody to allocate the spend for 12 months of a fractional CEO, even if it was only myself, right? My alter ego, or a board or investors, whatever. So, like, at the end of those like 90 days, what should I see? right? Or let's put it this way, Mike, because I want to frame it up. As CEO, what should I do to make sure I get maximum value from the first 90 days? Or what should I stop doing that I used to do, but now I really need to stop doing that, or I'm actually like remove or muting some of the strengths of my CMO?
I think that's typical in any company, but I'm going to go back to what they shouldn't do or what they have
Yeah,
to stop doing. Is the vast majority of them, if they follow the Jack Welch approach, hire people smarter than they are because there's a reason to do that, to not be the smartest person in the room. And yet their persona and the perception is that regardless of who else is in the room, they're the ones that really know everything. And you have to break them of that habit and say, you hired me and you trust me, let me do my job. And I'm going to give you feedback. And some of the feedback you're not going to like, but that's okay. I have to give you honest information, not necessarily what you'd want to hear. And one of the places where I found that most often is those that are the owner and developer of a product per se. Of course,
right.
they love it, right? It's their baby. But unfortunately, that doesn't mean that the rest of the world loves their baby. And that can be a challenge because in a lot of cases, the consumer sentiment isn't what they want. Well, it's a great product. Well, you may think so, but I love my kids, but my next door neighbor doesn't like either one of them. So it's same problem. But
One
that's how we
one of
look
you
at
is right about your kids, and one of you is wrong, and we should never assume we're the ones who are right. I'm
it.
just saying.
Exactly. Uh,
Hey, Monica. So let me sort of invert the question a little bit
Yeah.
now. Okay, what do companies typically do uh, so that they waste the money that they spent on their fractional CMO?
I think really simply put is not trust their CMO in the first place that they bring in. I think implicitly they may say so, but the actions don't match that. I think just not trying to be involved in every single little thing and think that you know better, very similar to what Mike said, but it's just there's a lot of trust and knowing that we're collaborating and we are in this together. We have shared goals, shared expectations. Make sure that that is super clear from the get go, as well as making sure we have open communication throughout the entire process. But and just not interfere as much. Give your CMO that authority and that space to make the decisions and take the actions that they need to, not just to implement the actions, but also lead the team that is, and the people that are already there. I think often they think what I see a lot is maybe, okay, fine, go ahead with activities, but the authority to lead the team as an external person coming in is not always given, which hinders the entire process as well.
Okay. Well, then let's imagine that I'm still that CEO. Okay.
Yes.
Now I've got some people who work in marketing, staffers, like junior people, mid-level. They
Mm-hmm.
might have had supervision, right, or even management, but they haven't had like leadership in marketing yet, right? And so I'm looking at this team today. I'm thinking about what they're going to look like a year from now, after the end of this like 1 year of Thrive. How is that team going to look any different? Is the mix of inside outside going to be different? Is the mix of employee versus agency going to be any different? Is the team going to be bigger? Like, how is that team going to like change? How are the people going to change in the course of a year?
Well, I think the main change is going to be definitely in terms of their behaviors and their
Yeah.
mindset, because you now have a leadership coming in. You created a strategic plan. You all know what you're going to work on, what you have to focus on. And the way I do it is I like taking that team along in the entire process so that they understand why they're doing it and they're so much more inspired and motivated, which brings in better results. Now, whether the team actually changes in terms of size and the mix of agency is really going to depend on that business and the goals that we set. Right? It's not something I can just say it's going to be straightforward for every company. For some companies, we decide we need to work more with an agency. For others, we need to bring in more other external people and build out that team further. So, but I think the clarity that comes and understanding why you're doing what you're doing, and therefore really focused on that results and seeing how everything works together versus just working in those silos. I think one of the biggest things I see, the bigger the companies, the more siloed they are working.
Right.
So bringing that kind of collaborative nature and therefore driving better results in the process.
And Mike, what do you think? Better, but at a minimum different after having a actual leadership in marketing for a year, right?
They'll definitely be different. One of the things that I'm going to tie into a little bit is when you are first evaluating them, going back to the book Good to Great. First of all, do you have the right people on the bus? That's something,
Right.
yeah. And then are they in the right seat? Because a lot of times the skill set is just not being used appropriately. And then you get to, we really could use an agency because you're more valuable over here, or we need you because an agency wouldn't have your in depth understanding. At the end of the year, one of the things that I really focus on in the leadership role, and I've dealt with this many times in the past, is the CMO takes credit for everything that happened in the marketing department. I can assure you, if you get right down to that, they had very little to do with it other than overseeing it. It was the people doing the work. So give them the credit that they deserve, and they're going to be more enthused about doing more work and being recognized for the good work that they're doing versus saying, well, I did everything in my power. Look at all this great work I've done. And that he's taken all the credit for it. And so I really do focus on the leadership role. Lead and you'll get more out of the individuals than you will if you're just managing them.
All right. This is episode 101, by the way, and episode 1 of season 5. And so every new season, the questions change up a bit. And so I've got a couple of questions that I want to throw at you guys and see what happens. Okay. So Mike, we'll stick with you for a second. You've got lots of experience in this. What do most clients who've never had leadership in marketing before, what do most clients or many clients not understand about marketing?
A
What do
lot
you
of
find
them
yourself having to explain? Right.
a lot of them think, I always say in marketing, I get the horse to the water, but I can't make them drink. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a perception that marketing is sales, which is not true. A lot of times, what I see is that there's no collaboration between the marketing and sales teams. They're actually butting head with each other. Considerably. Well, you don't actually make the sale, no, but we get the people to the door. And that's one of the biggest misconceptions is
Right.
is knowing what marketing can and can't do and what the function is as part of that overall team. um, yeah, if we're doing sales, maybe it would be a different process than trying to get the people to the door. So again, it's a struggle with a lot of the people that have never had leadership. Is one, they think you're taking, especially the sales leadership, thinks that you're taking over. No, this should be collaborative. We need to work together because the end goal is to increase revenue, which is my favorite definition of what does a CMO do? What's the job description? In 2 words, is increase revenue. There may be a lot of ways of doing it, but that's what you're hired to do.
Right.
So
And Monica, how about you? What do many clients not understand about marketing?
um, that marketing is so much more than just running Facebook ads or going on social media. uh,
Marketing is
it's
not one tool or tactic. Yeah.
yeah, it's they just that's marketing for people. Are you going to come in and just grow a social media following? I'm like, what is your goals actually? What do you want to reach? That it is just so much more. And I think in this digital age that we are, the silos as well that people still work with. I've worked with this large 9-figure business. It's still a pretty new company from 4 or 5 years old, but marketing is separate, brand is separate, country marketing
Mm-hmm.
is separate, website is separate, growth
Mm.
marketing is separate. And I'm like, they all need to be working together. First of all, I don't even think you need so many separate functions. But this idea that everything is still individualized and there's just no cohesiveness. So understanding what marketing really is that it's really about driving, bringing more people into your world. And then it's understanding how do we do this in the right way, and then making sure we keep those customers as long as we possibly can, obviously as profitably as possible. And then how we do it, whether that's Facebook marketing or something else completely, is the question that you need to be answering. And so it involves brand, it involves communications, and it does involve social media marketing. So it is just so much more. And I think that's why the leadership is needed. And I think a lot of my work has always been actually aligning a lot of these silos and bringing them together in the process.
All right, let's switch over, and it's going to be the same question. In fact, Monica, I'm going to ask you the same question with one change, and then I'm going to give you a chance to ask Mike any
Okay.
question you want. Because everyone is here at random, which is to say everyone picked this time slot that we recorded in, but nobody knows who else is going to be in there. And so you just get plopped into this session with another fractional
Okay.
CMO. Right? It's kind of like part of the fun of this. So instead of what do most clients not understand about marketing, what do most new fractional CMOs not understand about becoming a fractional CMO or being a fractional CMO? And then ask Mike a question.
Oh, that's a big question. I could go on about
I mean, there's
that.
so many, right? Like the number of
There's so
people
many.
connected who are now fractional CMOs in the marketplace, it's exploded in the last few
But
years.
I think it's really similar to the question I answered. So it's
Yeah.
really similar to what I've been thinking as well. Is the fractional CMOs, somebody may just work on social media and call themselves a fractional CMO. And I think to understand that fractional CMO is really leading the entire marketing function, and that there is a strategic, both a balance between the strategic and really implementing. And it involves also not just putting out the marketing, but also leading the team and looking at internal processes, what can be optimized. I think it is just so much more. And that is one of the biggest things I've seen a lot of fractional CMOs not understand. And that label of fractional CMO being put really quickly on things which probably is more operational functions, to be honest. So that's one of the biggest
Right.
things. I could probably go on, but I'll start there.
All right. I'll come back to you in just a moment. So I'm going to go through a couple of questions with Mike. So, Mike, we haven't talked about or did we talk about what clients, we did, right? Most clients don't understand, I think.
Uh-huh.
What do most fractional CMOs not understand about being a fractional CMO?
I believe those,
What?
once they get the title of fractional CMO, similar to what Monica said, they become more uh, tactical versus strategic. They think, well, I'm going to go in, I'm going to manage this particular section. Well, that's not what a CMO does, fractional or otherwise. I think the part that many
Right.
fractional CMOs don't understand is that the workload is the same as if you were a full time CMO. You just have less time to do it, and you're going to have to delegate and be more effective in your delegation than if you were there 24/7, which is in a full time role. I've found that a lot of people that get into this, they have the expectation that I'm a once a day or whatever would happen to be leader, and the rest of the week we're not. Well, that's not the case. It's just you have to be much more strategic in your own workload and how to delegate so that you can actually accomplish the goals that you would normally have 40 or 50 hours to do, and you're just not going to have that.
All right. Monica, what's your question for Mike?
Um, okay, so we have seen, I think over the last few years, I think the market has changed so much, and that's what everyone is talking about. But I feel like the focus is a lot on technology that has been changing. But we
Right.
also see a lot bigger shifts in like customer behavior. I've seen a lot of businesses go bankrupt and everything. Yeah, big retailers and brands. I'm here in the Netherlands, and many of them have just, people going bankrupt. What do you see as the biggest change? And if you had to choose a one thing a business should focus on now, what would that be?
I've you said you've been doing it for 20 years. I've been doing it for more than double that. So it's I've seen a lot of changes. The biggest one that I see that there hasn't been a good reaction to, um, in all honesty, happened at the beginning of the pandemic where there was no response. Everybody thought either it's gloom and doom or nothing's going to change. Because I work primarily in e-commerce, there was a huge change. Because I also work with blended companies where there's in-store. Well, the in-store was drying up. Well, do you just give up and go out of business, or do you replace that income, and how do you do it? And understanding the differentiation between the online customer versus the in-store customer and how they work through the buying process is considerably different. How you use all of your marketing tools to attract them, because they can't go see a visual display. How are you going to do that? Has been the challenge that I've seen. How do you fix that? And honestly, it's by having the mindset of the consumer and understanding how they want to shop, not how you want them to shop. And most, again, it's like putting that square peg in a round hole. They try to force something on the consumer, and the consumer doesn't want it. But the other thing is, consumer sentiment is fickle. It not only changes, over a longer period of time. Sometimes it changes in 10 minutes. It's like the weather, so you have to have enough data to make the proper decisions to target and such. But that's what I've seen has been a big challenge, that the pandemic drove a lot of retail onto the e-commerce side, and they just weren't prepared for it and didn't know how to work within
And Mike, what's your question for Monica?
it.
The random fractional CMO you've been paired with.
Yeah, I think one of the questions that I'm always asked, so I'm going to just put it out to you, is um, why a CMO to begin with? If you have a leadership structure that doesn't have that title with it, what is the value of the CMO title versus just being, say, the VP of marketing, which is, as well? And how do you find that as those titles change, the responsiveness changes between the work that you're doing?
Ooh, okay. That's interesting. At the end, I'm not a person that's really big on titles personally, because I think in every company, they have so many, you have the head of marketing, the VP of marketing, or it's often the titles are, I think it's how the role is defined is what is the most important personally. But in the company itself, obviously, I do notice that the label makes a difference. As soon as you add chief marketing officer, so any kind of C-suite to it, it changed the level of authority you get automatically from the people. There is already a certain expectation. Obviously, you still need to build trust and a relationship with the people in the business, but there is a certain expectation that you already come up with. And I do think that really changes the way I can, when I go in and I can do the work that I do with the people and get people to listen to me, at least to start with. It's my job to keep them engaged and going and really aligned to it. But at least at the beginning, it does change that. And I think the label, for some reason, still does make a huge difference in that sense. But what I also see is in companies that they often give these titles like a VP of marketing or head of marketing, but the person is only managing just a very small part of the marketing function, but they're just bloating up with those labels again and those titles. And my only thing was that be careful with that. And that's again where having that chief marketing officer really does make a difference when you come in and how others perceive you. I think it's more about how others see you.
Okay, it's like head of marketing, and you're the only person in the marketing department, right?
I've seen so many of them, or one person
Yeah.
under you, and then
Yeah,
and they're asking you to implement the whole social media marketing, but not come up with any kind of strategic focus.
yeah, it's interesting.
So, Monica, who should be reaching out to you these days, and how should they get in touch with you?
Well, if you're kind of a business that is looking to, break through the next growth ceiling, you're feeling stuck in that vicious cycle, or you're just ready to kind of accelerate that growth, I would say 1 million plus, at least in terms of where you are in terms of business. You have a team of marketing, but you don't have anyone to lead it at this moment. But you're trying to figure out what that next step of growth needs to be. And in a way that I really take people along, so in a way that really aligns the team as well in the process. Then yes, you can reach out to me. I'm a businesswithmonica.com. You can find me on LinkedIn under my name, or just drop me an email at hello@businesswithmonica.com.
And Mike, how about you? Who should be reaching out to you these days? How should they get to you?
So our company's focus is primarily in retail and e-commerce.
Mm-hmm.
Not that we don't do others, but that's where the primary focus is. Uh, we have a team of 90. So what we look at initially, so even though I might be working as a fractional chief marketing officer for another company, is we have a team of technology people, we have a team of strategists that work with us. So we're looking for 50 million and higher in the retail and e-commerce world would be the first one. The second part is it always makes sense if you're coming in as a fractional chief marketing officer is why would I be there? Maybe I'm bridging the gap between the previous CMO and the new one because it can take a long time to hire somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Or you've determined that you just don't need that level full time. Those would be some of the people that could reach out to me. And if nothing else, I could at least give them guidance about why you do need a fractional CMO or why you don't, because both of those are important. I can be reached at my LinkedIn profile there, which is linkedin.com/FSMC1. Our website is digitalthatdelivers.com. So we took a spin on, what we actually do versus just having the name of our company. Um, and unfortunately, I'm not in the witness protection program. So if you search on my name, I just show up all over the place. So I'm pretty easy to reach. And Mike at digital.delivers.com is one of the email addresses that will reach me. And I'm happy, as I said, I'm happy to just talk to people and to see if we're a good fit, because I think that's the most important part. It's not that I can do the job, is am I a good partner with that company to help them grow?
Right. All right, both of you, thank you so much. This has been really great. Hopefully, illustrative. I don't ever know if it's illustrative or illustrative, but it was informative. Let's put it that way. For me, for sure. When in doubt, as a writer, always feel bad when I'm not. I mean, I know it's the right word. I just not sure what the pronunciation is. So fair enough. So thanks to both of you. Thanks, Mike, and thanks, Monica. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Thank you, Dean.
We'll
Thank
see you
you.
soon. And thanks for watching episode 101. Crazy how